It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Bruce Phelps, a member of this Fulton First United Methodist congregation for over 70 years. Mr. Phelps has the distinction of being the oldest member of this congregation. He turned 96 yesterday. It is my pleasure to welcome you, Brother Phelps, and to have this conversation with you. Mr. Phelps is also a well-known businessman in this Fulton community. So as we begin this interview, I say to you, happy birthday, Mr. Phelps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tell me, what is it like to have lived for almost 1 century?
Well, it's been great. I've been busy. I love people. We get out and visit. I visit in my business with the people that work there. I guess I'm that kind of a person that likes to visit. I was chairman of the National Tooling Machine Association, and that was the greatest part of any get-together or anything I had to do with the groups in the other cities and other places, was to visit.
Right. Now, if you were to comment on your longevity, your long life, what would you say is the secret of your longevity?
Well, my father, I came from a family of people who did live long. I had an uncle who lived to be 104. My older sister lived to be 92. My next sister lived to be I think my older sister lived to be 102, and my second sister lived to be 98.
Wow. So was there anything in particular that you would mention in terms of, what contributed to their longevity and now to yours?
Well, originally our family came from Wales. And I believe because of the size of us, we were probably miners.
Okay. Now, Mr. Phelps, Brother Phelps, it was last year, around this time, you celebrated your birthday, that we went into lockdown because of the pandemic. In fact, the last service we held before the lockdown, we celebrated your 95th birthday in 2020. What has the last year been like for you?
Well, it's been a little lonesome. I live alone. I got a cat. But I do have family around me, so they take good care of me. But it has been a kind of a lonesome time because I had to stop working out at the Y. There was meetings that I still have with organizations I belong to, but we have them using the web. It's a lot nicer sitting around a table and talking to people and finding out how they are and what they ate for lunch, I guess.
Yes. I know originally you are from Canada, and you did some service there in Canada before you came over to the United States of America. What are some of the experiences that have helped to shape your life, to make you the person you are today?
Well, I think living in a smaller place, our village was 300 people, and people took care of each other. if a family ran out of food, there was a collection made, not by the family, but from friends who knew about that. And everything got back to your family. If you misbehaved, you heard about it at home.
Yes.
I have a story. My father was a businessman. He had a hardware store and goods for the farmers. And it was a farming community, and it was pretty near the center of the maple syrup business. He had to learn during the Depression to do business without money. If a farmer came into his store and wanted a double harness, he could get the double harness, and they'd work out how many gallons of maple syrup he had to bring to him. Mm-hmm. Then my father was literally in the mail order business early on. He had an L.C. Smith typewriter that was made in Syracuse, but he typed a letter in January, February to all of the section bosses on the Canadian National Railroad. He had been a railroad man at one time. And he made a deal in the letter with them to take orders for maple syrup, collect the money, send it to them, and he'd give them so much maple syrup. Mm-hmm. And that was a booming business for us. That was one of my jobs, was packing the maple syrup in gallon cans, mm-hmm. an imperial gallon. In the store, we had 3 clerks. Yes, it was we. We were a family, and we had me. My father called me up in his office one day and said to me, "I need some help." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, what do you want, Dad?" He said, "One of the clerks is stealing money." And of course, I was the clerk. And I was very frightened. And he said to me, "I need your help." He said, "When you need some money," and he said, "You're getting an allowance every week at 10 cents, and you're too big for that small allowance. So you just take whatever you need and leave me a note in the cash register." Yes. And he said, "I'll find out who's stealing." Well, I never took very much after that. The village had 3 churches. The Church of England and the Methodist Church, or not the Methodist, the United Church of Canada, mm-hmm. the Baptist Church, and then just outside of the village was a Catholic church. And people did go to church. I can almost remember my mother carrying me to church, mm-hmm. but you know, back then there wasn't much going on. There was nothing for people to get together and talk, that kind of thing, so everybody went to church, I believe. Right. I had a good childhood. And I think that we had Sunday school, and we went to church, and on Sunday we weren't allowed to play mm-hmm. outside. The thing we did do, my father took us for a walk. And I could take my little dog, and and we walked on the railroad tracks, and if I saw a woodchuck, I would get him to stop, and we'd sit and watch the dog stalk the woodchuck. Mm-hmm. That's about the most we could do on Sunday. But it was a great life. I guess I would like to see every kid get the opportunity to be brought up in a village. Right.
So based on what you're saying, lessons from your father, as he did business and you were part of that business, some of the things that he said to you helped to shape your life, plus the village in which you were brought up. The village was like, they say it takes a village to raise a child. That was significant.
Yeah.
And your faith, you said, played an important role. Now, is there anything you can share with us concerning, how has your faith impacted your business, as a businessman? How has your faith impacted your business?
Yes. I've been in several businesses here. Mm-hmm. And first off, in our business, I had a partner, and we bought and sold machine shop equipment in our spare time. And from that, we bought a company that manufactured self-closing barrel faucets. And following what my father had taught me, we had to get a market plan going, and we didn't know how to do that except mail order. So we went in the mail order business. It was very successful. We bought that business in 1949, and I sold it in 1973. My two partners lived to be 52, and that was a loss, a big loss for me. But going back to business and what I did or what happened, I had help. I decided that God would be my partner.
Wonderful.
So at 2 o'clock, every businessman wakes up at 2 o'clock. He's got a lot of problems. He's got things he's worried about.
Yes.
And so I talked to God about my problems. Then, to tone myself down silently, I sung hymns. And I would recommend that to anybody that worries. It's an immediate cure.
Right.
Probably the late 70s, early 80s, and the country was on unemployment. The unemployment was horrible. And, of course, no business for job shops. Sitting at home one night, Barbara and I were watching television, and Dallas-Fort Worth and Oklahoma City had the lowest unemployment rate in the country. So I said to Barbara, I don't have much money left.
Right. Barbara was your wife.
Yes. And I said, I'm going to go to Dallas and see what I can do. I had my membership book to the association, so I went down to, went Dallas and went over to Conley Machine. John Conley, he was a cousin to the, I think the Conley may have been he was in politics in Texas. Anyway, I went over there, and he took me in his office, and he said, what are you here for? And I said, I'm looking for work. I said, we don't have any work. Well, he said, I don't have anything right now, but let me make you some appointments. And he did that. And I went home very, very busy. For quite a few years, we made most of the parts, the metal parts for the tank periscope. And that was just one customer. There's another customer there that we still work for every year. And they've been there. They've been with us for a long time. So thinking about that, you would expect if you went into somebody else's territory and asked them to help you, it takes a pretty good man to help you.
Yes.
And business has been that way right along. I felt I've gone into areas, and because I had been, later on, I became the national chairman for the National Tooling and Machining Association. And so during 85 and 86, and a little bit on both sides, I traveled the country to the chapters. There were 62 chapters across the country, and of the chapters, there were 22 schools. And we did, in those areas, I think we talked about it at some time, but we had Sundays that you couldn't travel and there wasn't much to do. And most of the big hotels had churches, or not churches, but church services in them. And then a lot of them, they told you where a church was.
Right.
In Bermuda, Barbara and I were there, and it was during that same period I was president of the offshore insurance company. So we had 4 meetings a year of the board. And when we went, we stayed in Hamilton, Bermuda, and I noticed the United Church of Canada was there. So I said to Barbara, we'll go to church in that church this Sunday, which we did. And I've talked to the pastor about this. Nobody said, thank you for coming. Hope you had a good time. Will we see you again? It was like we were foreigners. And that is the one thing that I think our church here has done. Here we have probably the friendliest congregation that I've ever seen. And I've been in a few churches. And I think we'll come back to that now that the pandemic is slowing down. And we've got an awful lot of wonderful people here. Some of them may fit my view of saints.
Wonderful.
And I think I told the pastor about when we were first married. I think we had maybe the 2 girls at that time. There was a lady in our church that would visit with us about once a month. She did it for other members in the church. And she brought you a loaf of homemade bread and some other bread products. And she was a wonderful cook. I loved it. But I look at her and look at what she did for, at that time, we certainly didn't have much money. And the bread was such a treat. So I've said that's probably in my lifetime, and the Methodist Church here, that was the first saint. Right. And I believe we have other saints in this church. We have people now that are working in this church and doing outstanding things. And one of my friends, we have a joke going between us, and I call him Moses.
Moses, yes.
And I think probably I'm going to let him tell all of you what he did.
Right. Now, you know, as you were speaking, Mr. Phelps, Brother Phelps, I thought of some other questions I had in mind, but you answered those questions in terms of, you know, some of the things that give you hope and the kind of impact that you think the church can make. And I think you answered those questions already. I realize that we probably need more time to have this conversation because you have so many experiences. But I would like to conclude this conversation today by asking you, what are some of the things, very briefly, if you could share, what troubles you today, and then what gives you hope as we wrap up today?
Well, I think we all have problems, and I guess I've got to answer that a little different, probably. I don't think I could have been in business without having the faith and the fact that it doesn't matter where I am. If something happens that is outstanding, I thank God for it. There. And I might be a little different, but I feel that your faith is 24 hours a day, and you only have to talk about a problem once. You don't have to talk about it every day.
Right.
So I believe that I don't believe I could have made this age or been in business this long if I didn't have faith.
Thank you so much, Brother Phelps, for sharing with us. Your sharing is truly inspiring, and I trust that time will allow us to do something similar in the future. But thank you for doing what you've done today, and I pray that God will continue to strengthen and sustain you, and that you will continue to be a strong man of faith. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.